Yep. I see us. People are watching us.
Ready or not?
Yep. Okay. It's on. Yep. So now I can hit my bumper.
Here we go. It's time to go temple building from the inside out. Many of us know that physical and mental health play a direct part in spiritual health, but we may not know how to bring it all together. Well, here's your host, Desiree Fletcher Carruthers, as we go temple building from the inside out.
Fantastic.
Oh, shoot. Hey, everybody. Happy Monday and welcome to Temple Building from the Inside Out with Desiree Fletcher Carruthers. Sorry, we are running a little bit late this morning. We're getting the bugs worked out on this whole producing aspect of it, but we're here
Did
and I'm
good.
super
High five.
excited. Um, I would like to welcome our guest we have this morning. It's Melissa Grandin, nutrition specialist from EP True Chiropractic, and we are going to be talking um, immune building, how to boost your immune system for the upcoming season. I mean, it's in October. I don't know where everybody's at. I think most of you are probably here in Iowa and Des Moines. Some of you are not, but we are already experiencing our first frost.
Yeah.
And so it's getting cold, and people know over the winter season that's when we tend to get the most sick. We have the most colds, flu, whatever it is we probably can contract. We are going to contract it, and I know a lot of people think that it's because it's cold. And that's not necessarily true. So, we are going to talk some myth busters. We're going to talk the
Right.
basics about building your immune system holistically, some ways on how to do that. But before we get that far, Melissa, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Well, thanks, Des, for having me on. This is awesome. I feel so official with this big, microphone in front of me. I feel like you should be wearing those headsets when I
We
listen to
should.
podcasts and stuff too, so we can like hear each other talk. But thankfully, we're only a few inches away. But yeah, like Desiree said, my name is Melissa Grandin, and I do work as a nutrition specialist at EP True Chiropractic in West Des Moines, Iowa. Guess I need to mention that, so it's maybe we have some listeners or some watchers from other places. But I have been working there for since about 2013. My passion and love has always been in health, and this has just been a perfect segue for me to be able to share the knowledge that I've learned over the last probably 10, 12, 15 years, just kind of living this lifestyle. And I'm not perfect, but I think it's all about us being better, and I don't expect anybody else to be perfect either. But there's things that we can do in our life that will help us to just become better, and we can just raise our level of health and knowledge. And I think, Des, we always talk about all the time, it's not, we just want people to know the information.
Yes.
Our views might not be what everybody agrees with, but
Yep.
at least then we can do our own research, and you
Exactly.
know the truth and you know the right information, and then it's up to you to make the best decision for your family,
Exactly.
right?
And you know what? I'm glad that you brought that up because that is something that I want to make sure that I share with everyone who is listening. We're going to be talking more holistic approaches, and these may be different than what you're used to,
Right.
and maybe you've never really heard of these options before, and that's okay. We're not saying the things that you're doing to, stay healthy over the winter season are wrong, but this will give you something else to think about, broaden your horizons, look into it more. Um, you know, ask a doctor or a holistic professional about it and just see what works best for you and for your family. So it's all about knowledge sharing and equipping everyone with the tools they need to live the healthiest life that they can. And of course, as the show says, temple building from the inside out. The holistic approach is a lot of what you're going to be getting on this programming, because it's about helping your body internally do the job that it was designed to do. And
Amen.
so that's what we're going to get to. So, immune system, there's a lot of different ways that we can go with this. And we're not going to have a chance to cover everything, but just to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field here, just kind of give us a very high level, how does our immune system work?
Well, you're right.
Very high level.
So we'll try and like simplify it a little bit. It's our immune system consists of so many different things. A lot of people think of it from, like a cellular standpoint. When we have our white blood cells that are the little Pac-Man that are going in to fight off any diseases or bad bugs or anything that we may, come in contact with. But we also have our central nervous system plays a huge role in that too. Without making this a gut talk show, we're going to talk a lot about the gut, because our digestive system is like 80% of our immune system. So if we keep the environment in our gut healthy, we're going to be able to translate that over into just immune system health. Plus, you have your lymphatic system that helps pump everything through. It's kind of like your garbage. The garbage man takes the garbage out. We have to make sure that system is working well. So there's a whole lot of different parts and pieces that go along with that. But I think today we're going to talk about it from a nutritional standpoint, essentially, and just how we can keep those cells fighting and functioning the way that they're supposed to, keep those what we call our bad bugs down, and how we can equip ourselves with the right weapons if we do experience an immune response. I don't like to call it getting sick, because our body is doing everything that it needs to do. That what we would traditionally call sickness is an immune response. Like your body is taking that. The fever has a purpose, the throwing up has a purpose, the other bowel movement functions have a purpose. I mean, it's your body's way of doing what it needs to do to make itself well. I mean, God designed us so perfectly, right?
He did, exactly.
And even though they might not be enjoyable symptoms and side effects of it, we just have to trust that it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. So when we do have those immune responses, and I like how you put that, and that's a good way to think about it, it is your body triggering all of its activities to get rid of that bad bug that is in your system. And so our body is doing what it's supposed to do, even though we're like, oh my gosh, I wish this fever would go away, I wish these chills would go away. Well, when the body has ousted the bug, all those things are going to go away. So nutritionally, let's just, like I said, there are a lot of different ways that we can take this, but let's just start with some basics. So I know a lot of people, one of the first things they think of is, oh, I'm getting sick, vitamin C, I have to superload vitamin C. I mean, is that a route to go?
Definitely. I think any of those antioxidant rich foods are going to be essential. I think when we think about those, though, we just automatically assume, we got to just go to the orange juice.
Yes.
Or, the oranges and those citrus fruits. And when, those are going to have some benefits, and we're going to be able to take vitamin C from those, and that's a really strong antioxidant. But also along with it comes the sugar side of things too. And maybe that's where we need to start, as well as talking about, like how we do get, sick, right?
Okay.
Having those immune responses comes from, I believe sugar is the root of almost every single disease process. So if we just start pumping in if you're eating 10 oranges a day, even though, gosh, God gave us those great oranges, but the sugar content comes with that too. So maybe that's not always the best source. It's definitely one that we, can take a look at. But, thinking about other vitamin C rich foods. A lot of people forget that peppers,
all right,
and kiwi and
Kiwi is
spinach
a fun one.
and
Spinach.
some of those other vegetables and other fruits that we have honestly have more vitamin C than what an orange does. So,
okay.
But that's just
and that is a great way to look at it. And I'm actually going to take that start, and I'm going to back us up a step, because I think I kind of just jumped the gun a little bit in going to the vitamin C. So we talked vitamin C. There are some different ways that you can get it, and that's great. But I'm going to take us back a step, and we're going to come back to this, because sugar is what prompted this. But okay, so we're headed into the fall and the winter, and this is mostly when we get sick. But then let's also talk about why.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we getting sick? And then we'll get to the solution. So we'll come back around to the sugar and the vitamin C. But, so we're not outside as much.
Right.
So not as much fresh air. We're inside confined spaces where we're breathing a lot of recirculated air. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. But then I know when we were talking before the show, you also had talked about with the fall and the winter, we have holidays. With holidays, as much as we love them, they can stress us out.
Yeah, stress. That's huge. I mean, stress depletes. I mean, I feel like stress is the number one killer of our health because
Yes.
it depletes us of a lot of nutrients that our body's getting because as you're stressed, the inside of your body needs to keep up with, basically the lion chasing us all the time. And so it's burning through those nutrients very, very quickly. And when we have a deficit, then different functions of the body start falling off or not working the way that they're supposed to because we've deprived it through those stressful situations. And along with stress comes not sleeping.
Yes, and that's critical to health as well.
We know our body heals when we sleep. So if you're not getting enough of it, and my recommendation, 7 hours is the minimum. I know some people can function a little bit less than that, but different areas of the
not one of
body, me either. I feel great if I can get like 8.5, 9 hours of sleep. And so honestly, between that, 7 to 9 hours would be essential. We know our bodies heal, like I said, when we're sleeping. So if we're not getting that adequate amount of time, and different areas of the body heal at different times too. So if you're not allowing your body to be able to go through all of those cycles, you might be missing healing of the liver. You might be missing healing of the gut. All of those things happen during the night. So that again is one of the main reasons why things slow down because we allow the holidays to make us stressed out and busy.
We do because we want to be so much busier because we've got gifts to buy, we've got a house to clean, we want to invite family over. We want all of these things, and then we want to bake a lot of stuff.
All the
Or we
treats.
want to bring treats to
And
work.
the traditions.
And the traditions. And with that comes back around to the sugar we were talking about earlier, albeit that was natural sugar.
Yeah.
But this is all of the added sugar in
Yeah.
the chocolates and the cookies and
Yeah.
the just pies and everything. And that takes a wear and tear on your immune system as well.
Yeah, it all tastes so good, but it usually comes with a price. And a lot of people think, we only, that's what we were talking about earlier. We get those immune responses more during the winter time because if we think about our lifestyle, we're getting in more of those treats and sweets. And I feel like it starts, Halloween's coming up here in a couple weeks.
It does.
It basically starts the Halloween and goes till
Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter. Basically we
You
have
find an excuse
all
all year.
of the most decadent holidays that are going to come all the way through to spring.
Yeah.
And so we are sick from fall to spring. And I've never thought about it that way, but that the holidays and all the sweet treats that go along with it coincide with that, what I'll call the sick season.
Yeah,
if you
well,
will.
we don't want to be fun haters either.
We don't want to be fun haters. So we're not saying don't have your treats, but we're just telling
Sharing
it
the
like it is.
information.
We're
Yeah,
just
sharing the-
information. Because I know I'll be making a few cheesecakes probably myself throughout there, but I try to behave and not eat. So I don't know. We'll talk about Halloween. That's another show. But I've never been big on that. So I'm one of those moms where the kids do not get to eat everything they bring home.
Yes.
It just doesn't happen that way. But anyway, I
Yeah.
digress.
Well,
We're gonna come back
we
around.
can talk about how that happens too. Is sugar has an effect on the immune system, and I had once heard a research study or someone share one time that every time we eat sugar, it lowers your immune system function or your body's ability to fight an
Yes.
infection or something
Yes.
coming on for up to 6 hours. So if you get exposed to something during that time after you've just loaded yourself with all this sugar, that's where we start having some of our issues. So just thinking about that, and we're not going to be perfect, but if we can just start being, I think if we can just make ourselves aware and
Yes.
conscious of how much we are, because sometimes we just go through the season mindlessly, eating and not even thinking about what it is that we're putting into our bodies.
Exactly. And especially in an office setting where all of your coworkers, everybody's got a little candy dish sitting around somewhere, and if you're just picking up a piece from here to here to here,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you have no idea
It
that you
adds up.
probably ate, a whole candy bar's worth because
Yeah.
of just one little piece at a time, or
Right.
even more than that. So even just being conscious of what we put into our mouths when we're bored or we're not thinking about it, being more selective about the treats and snacks that maybe we even bring and share with others also
Right.
can help.
Yeah.
We can be a helpful neighbor in that sense.
We can.
And it's not as much fun, I know, but anyway, we're all about trying to make sure that you're healthy this fall. All right, so we talked about some reasons of why our immune system seems to be the most compromised
Yeah.
during the cold season, and we started to talk about some solutions. So we
Yeah.
talked about vitamin C.
Before we get into that, I do want to
Okay.
touch on too. The one of the questions that I get a lot is, well, why did I get sick, but my husband and my kids didn't get sick?
Yes, that's a good one.
So a lot of it, we talk about is the soil or the environment that our body holds on to. So just because somebody else got a germ or a bug doesn't mean that you have to get it either, or your symptoms are going to be the same. We notice that all the time. And everybody responds to different and has different immune responses, and they react differently with different symptoms. So again, it's coming back to just the environment, and if you are able to keep your body healthier, your body's going to be able to fight off, and those white blood cells are going to be able to attack better, so that your immune response may be less or shorter than the person next to you. I know my kids. It was a kind of a hefty year with the flu, I feel like, last year. And most kids, there was like 10% of the school gone, I feel like, at one point. And
Yeah.
because of how we choose to live at home, my kids didn't have a sick day at all. When everybody else around them was getting, and my daughter did say one time that she had one of her friends throw up on the desk right next to her. And so I'm thinking, in my head, knowing what I know, I'm like, okay, for sure she's going to come down with something. But she didn't, because we took action, and we were able to do some of these things that we're going to talk about today to make sure that our immune system stays healthy.
And that's so true. And sometimes it's just, your internal chemistry. My husband, for example, he has had a long history of health issues, prolonged exposure to antibiotics, this, that, and the next
Right.
thing, that dirt that you were talking about in his gut. And no, this is not a gut talk, but your gut is so important to your immune system. It's just not as vibrant, I'll say, as it could be. And so if anybody in the house is going to catch something, it's going to be him.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10, he's the only one
Right.
that seems to come down with it, and that's because his immune system is just not as vibrant as the rest of ours,
Right.
for different reasons. So that's kind of a thing to keep in mind also if you're thinking about, well, why does this person get sick and I haven't gotten sick? So, sometimes it's just biology.
Yep. For sure.
But he can still work to continue to improve his internal workings and build up his immune system from the inside out, like
Right.
we're talking today.
Yeah.
Even though it might not be as strong as others around him.
Yep, definitely. Would this be a good time to talk about maybe some of those other foods that cause that? Other than sugar, can we go into some of those other?
We can go into those.
So, this is just information for you to look at what you're doing. I'm not saying any of this to make anybody feel bad. I know that we're not going to go home and throw everything out of your pantry
No, it's
today.
not gonna happen.
So, my general rule of thumb is, let's just take the information and learn it. And then as you start using some of these items up in your household, then let's just try and find a better replacement for it, right? So one of the things that we talk about too, just from a cellular level, and I think most people know that like processed foods and hydrogenated oils aren't good for us, but those would be huge things. They're going to plug up our cells from a cellular level, so that nutrients can't get in and toxins can't get out the way that they're supposed to. So we want to think about a lot of those prepackaged foods, any of the microwave type foods. They have so many preservatives in them that do cause a toxic buildup inside of our bodies. So the more that we can stay away from the packaged stuff and shop the outsides of the grocery store for the fresh things,
Yes.
that's going to be much better. When we think about hydrogenated oils, most people don't really understand or know what those are. So it's going to be things like canola oil, which I know we hear on the radio and the TV all
It's
the time.
great
That
for
is
heart
so
health.
healthy. I know, but that makes me cringe every time. Even like soy oil, and I know here in Iowa that's kind of a big thing because we're a soybean state, but because of how it's processed and it's the processing that it goes through from a chemical standpoint. It ends up becoming a hydrogenated oil before it gets into your body. And the problem is, we don't add those things a lot of times to our foods, but they're in
Already
a lot of the
there.
foods that we're
Yes,
already
especially
buying.
the prepackaged foods.
Yeah. So better replacements. Here's where we talk about the action step of what you can replace with once you use them up. I'm a huge fan of coconut oil. How about you?
I'm a huge fan of coconut oil. I've also discovered avocado oil, which I tend to really like a lot.
Yeah.
So a lot of different options out there. Are they more expensive? Yeah.
It's an
sometimes they are.
investment. It's
is.
an investment in your health. We either spend more money now in knowing that we're going to spend less money later with some of those debilitating diseases that people struggle with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's hard. I get it.
It
And
can
that's
be
why.
hard. So, and just one little change at a time you guys can experiment with. So
Yeah.
take your notes and see what you want to do with it. And they bake just as well. I
do.
find, depending on how you feel about the coconut flavor, if you're using coconut oil as a replacement, and I'm going off on a little bit tangent,
Okay.
but I'll keep it short. Sometimes you have that flavor that comes through, but most times I found not
Right.
in baking, and
Right.
I found avocado oil works just as well in baking. So
And you know what? Regular butter.
butter, I am a fan of butter.
Organic, good organic butter. And when I tell people that they can eat butter, they're like, oh my gosh, really? I've always been told it's bad for me. And it's like this huge excitement that comes about them because everybody loves butter. Who
Yeah,
doesn't?
and we're gonna flip the script. I'm gonna flip the script. Margarine, say no.
Yes.
Say no to margarine. It really is one step away from plastic. I'm not
Yes.
going to share the story of how margarine originated. That might be another show. But just stick with real butter.
Yeah.
All right. What else you
Good.
got on your list there?
Well, let's start talking about like what we can do, what you can
Yep.
add into what you're already doing now, right?
Yep.
So there's been a lot of buzz lately on some of the fermented foods. Have you heard all the buzz?
I've heard, and kombucha is one of those great
Yeah.
ones. A lot of fermented foods. All you sauerkraut lovers out there, you're probably going to think this is fantastic.
Yes. So fermented foods, again, we're coming back to the gut, but we've got to build that environment on the inside so that you can break down and digest the good foods that you are eating and actually utilize those nutrients. So from a good gut health standpoint, those fermented kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut, those are all awesome. Now they don't maybe necessarily have a whole lot of probiotics to them, but they have the like the organic acids that your body needs to help feed the good bacteria in the gut. So definitely things that you can start adding to your grocery list or testing out. It's gonna take a little while for taste buds to adapt to some of these things as you start getting rid of the old stuff and add the new stuff in. Taste buds do change. I keep telling my kids that.
They do change. You might have to try a few things more than once.
Yes.
Just know that it'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, and I specific like on kefir, I kind of dug into that a little bit, and I'll be honest, that's not something that I really have gotten into a whole lot because I haven't acquired the taste for it yet. It's kind of a soury taste,
Yeah.
but I do know it's been around for about 3,000 years. I mean, it's been used for about 3,000 years, so it's been around for a long time. A lot of people really swear by it and the health benefits of it. But what I thought was interesting when I kind of looked into it, it started in like Russia and Turkey, I believe.
Okay.
And kefir actually means feel good, like it's translated into
Nice.
feel good. So
Nice.
maybe just even like from a mental standpoint, if we know we're drinking it, it will just
We'll just believe that
think
we
our
feel
way
good.
into
That's
feeling
right.
feeling good. But you can buy those at most stores. I would say just be careful, read the ingredient labels, make sure that there's nothing crazy kooky added to it, because they like to do
Yes.
that a lot of times. And
Yes.
a lot of times those ones that are sweetened with other fruits and things have added sugars to them. So if you can get the plain stuff, I know it's not the most desirable all the time, but plain would be best.
Okay.
The kefir.
That's true.
I don't know.
But you know what? The one thing that I want to be able to share here, and I'll probably share it a lot, is eating well does not mean eating bland, does not mean always
Amen.
eating
Yes.
things that aren't going to taste good. Now,
Right.
there are some things that you have to develop a taste for, but that's with anything.
Mm-hmm.
For all you beer drinkers out there, honestly, I don't know how you drink it
I don't know.
because I had it in my mouth maybe less than a handful of times, and
Yeah.
every time I feel like it's so disgusting,
Ugh.
and they're like, it's an acquired taste. Well, that's no taste I just
No
going to
desire of
acquire. A, I
acquiring.
don't drink anyway, but it's just that's the example. If you acquired a taste for beer or any kind of alcohol, I'm sure you can acquire a taste for some healthy foods, for some kombucha or something like that, and swap it out. Get all that yeast out of your system and replace it with a fermented
There you
food.
go.
How about that?
Yes, much better. I'm with you on that one too.
All right. Okay. So what's next up on your
well,
list?
I know it's hard for us to avoid a lot of the things that we talked about and also to add in a lot of these things that we're discussing as well. It's going to take some time, to do that. And frankly, a lot of the foods that we do get now aren't as nutritious as what they were 50 years
And
ago,
that is
right?
very true. Yes.
So
The soil is not the same. Processing, the growing processes are just not the same.
Yeah.
We grow more for aesthetics than we do for taste and nutrients anymore, I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah, we want the biggest, reddest apple or
Yes.
the biggest pepper, but the nutrient content really just isn't there. So a lot of times that's where it starts with our nutrient deficiencies, is because our foods aren't giving it to us the way that they used to before. So I'm big on, man, God gave us the ability to grow food and to raise food, and let's be able to get the nutrients from most of the food that we can. But the truth of the matter is, it's just not getting done these days. So I do feel like we need to get some good supplementation in
Yes.
on just a ground level. You don't have to. There's so many supplements out there and so much information. It's hard to know what to believe and what to take. And pretty soon, like, you just, I need that, and it treats this symptom, and I need this, and then you're just like taking. You don't even have room for food because you're just taking
so
all
many
these supplements.
Yeah.
Which I don't agree with either, but just from a foundational standpoint, there are a few things that I think will help, especially with our immune boosting. And we can go back to our vitamin C.
Yes.
That we take.
Which we started. So vitamin C, we talked about, okay, juice is one option. Other vegetables as another option, which have less sugar. So your green peppers, spinach, what did you say, kale?
Yeah, kale and broccoli.
Broccoli is another
Great,
good one. Okay,
full of
great.
vitamin C.
And then now we're talking about supplementation. Also, the one caveat I will put with supplements is, just like your foods, you need to check the label as to what are in your vitamins, because they could be packed with fillers as well. And every, a vitamin is a vitamin is not true. Not all vitamins are created equally. Some are definitely more potent than others. They may cost you a little bit more, but if you're taking the supplement for a purpose, buy the supplement that's going to do your body the most good. So be sure you check those labels on your supplements as well.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on just ingredient label reading.
And and supplements in general. But today we're
Yeah.
talking about immune boosting. But I
Yep.
do want to throw that out there. So don't just go out and buy. If you're like, well, I'm not going to eat broccoli, and okay, I'll cut down on the orange juice. I'm going to get some vitamin C tabs. Cool, but just check your label.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is, I don't want to make too many recommendations because everybody's body is different.
Yes.
And I know sometimes the recommendations that are made are just very general and generic, but a lot of times not really giving us what we need to make an immune boosting response to it. And you check this with, check all of this information with your healthcare provider too. But as
Yes.
far as vitamin C goes, I think it's safe for us to say it's a water-soluble vitamin, water-soluble nutrient. So your body's going to take what it needs and get rid of what it doesn't. But 1,000 milligrams one time a day with food, I think would be very safe, kind of moving through this winter season, just to keep immune system levels up.
Gotcha.
Another one, I think we start losing my best friend. We
The
start
sun.
losing my best friend outside. The sunshine.
Vitamin D.
Yes, and our best source of getting that is sun exposure with the skin. Good sun exposure. You don't want to overexpose because that causes more issues.
Yep.
But your body will make its own and the best vitamin D it can through the skin sun process. But unfortunately, I was covered up almost to my nose and my eyeballs this weekend when it was freezing cold outside, so we're not getting that sun
We're
exposure.
not. And I hate to be a buzzkill, but milk, not your friend.
Yeah.
As much as we think it is, you're actually going to get more vitamin D from your greens than you are from a glass of milk. I
Yeah.
know what marketing has told us, but I would not rely on that.
Exactly. Well, That's a good point, because people always ask me when I tell them to stop drinking milk or to think about a different source. Well, how am I going to get my calcium? How am I going to get my vitamin D?
Yeah.
Well, how do you think cows get their vitamin D?
Exactly.
Green leafy vegetables,
There you
right?
go,
Same
yep.
thing for us too. But vitamin D is super important for every disease process, and especially for boosting the immune system to attack those disease processes. That's one of the things I recommend people get tested is their vitamin D levels.
Exactly. And African Americans especially, I know this is not, true carte blanche across the whole race, but African Americans tend to be
Right.
deficient in vitamin D. And you're going to probably have to request it. Not most general healthcare practitioners will not just test you for vitamin D deficiency, and most insurance doesn't cover it. But it's not super expensive, but it is so important. And most of the time when we're deficient, it's not by a little bit, it's by a lot.
Right.
So if anything, if you're getting blood work done and you want to know, ask for it.
Right.
And they may or may not be like, well, you don't need it and insurance doesn't cover it. So if you really want it, you might have to be adamant. But that is an important one to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times, if you just tell them some of your symptoms, then that can warrant the insurance company actually covering it. So one of the symptoms of vitamin D deficiency is fatigue,
Yeah.
mood disorders. I know we like the seasonal affective disorder that we have kind of heading into that time of year. If our vitamin D levels are low, it definitely affects our mood, our brain focus, our cognitive function, all of that. So I do, and my kids too, take a vitamin D supplement, especially heading into this season. I think it's pretty safe to say if for a normal adult, about 5,000 IUs daily is what I would suggest. But a lot of those a lot of the supplements that you get out there are maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000.
Yeah.
But the good news is about vitamin D is you can store that. Like you can store that for later use too if you have enough of it in the body. So
Yeah.
that's a super nutrient that we definitely need to make sure that we're having. The other one we kind of talked about at the beginning of the show was with stress depleting nutrients. One of those first nutrients to go is our B vitamins.
And there are lots of those.
Oh my gosh,
Lots
yes.
of B's. So how
Yes.
do we know what B is going to help our immune system? Or do all of them just play a decent role?
I would say the answer is C, all of the above.
Okay.
Because they're so well utilized with every system and function of the body. Your body needs a good array of them. And again, these are going to be water soluble vitamins. So you're going to take in what you need and your body's going to get rid of what it doesn't. But we are not going to know what our needs are from this day to that day. So I do just a general B complex just to make sure that we're getting them all in. And again, with that, it can be fatigue if you're having trouble sleeping. I mean, these are all signs that we think that we may be deficient in some of those nutrients as well. So a good B complex would be awesome. But we can get B vitamins from foods that we're eating too. A lot of those same ones that we already mentioned.
And so, guys, with any of these vitamins, do talk to your healthcare practitioner and just see what they say and what their basic recommendation is. We are giving recommendations, but always check with your doctor on those things.
Yes.
And so we've kind of covered the gamut here. We've covered causes for our immune system not working as well as it can, foods that can boost that. And I guess basic rule of thumb, eat as many veggies as you can.
Yes.
Even if they're frozen, they're not going to be as nutrient dense as something that's fresh. But if you're like Desiree, Melissa, I can't cook, I'm one of those that doesn't have the time, and we're all with you, then I'd rather have you eat a frozen or canned version of it versus not at all, if that's what it takes. So get those veggies in, a lot of leafy greens. The darker the green, the better. That's awesome. But at this point, any vegetable except for maybe corn.
Peas, corn,
Peas,
carrots,
corn.
potatoes.
The leaf is green. Just keep it green. We're gonna go green for the holidays.
Except cauliflower. Like
Except
cauliflower, I think fits into everywhere.
It
It's
does.
it's very versatile.
And if
Even
you,
though it's not green.
if it requires you to have a little dip with it, that's okay. Just get
Yeah.
it in. Just make sure there's more cauliflower than the dip.
Well, and start adding in some of those herbs to your cooking too, like
Yeah.
garlic. We haven't, didn't really talk about those. Mushrooms are great too. So the button mushrooms, all sorts sorts of varieties of
Yeah,
mushrooms.
turmeric, yeah.
Turmeric, curcumin.
Yep.
I think cinnamon is great right now too, especially into the holidays.
There
That's
you
kind of
go.
the, we're kind of
Your
moving
hot
into more like the
drinks,
cinnamony
yeah.
type things. Green tea is great. Almonds are good. Berries are really strong in antioxidants too, but they're also lower in the glycemic index, so it's going to take the body a little bit longer to convert to sugar.
Yep.
So those would be great additions to put in your routine as well.
So now you just said berries, which triggered elderberry, which
Yeah.
seems to be all the latest rage these days. And I know our friends at Holton Homestead
Yes.
make their own organic and holistic elderberry tonic. So talk to me a little bit about elderberry, how this works. Why do I think I might want to use that to boost my immune system?
Oh my gosh. When we talk about superfoods, definitely the elderberry falls into that category. And I pulled up a little research and I wanted to read this. This was a study that was published in the Journal of International Medical Research. They found that when elderberry was used within the first 48 hours of the onset of symptoms of an immune response, we're talking about, the extract reduced the duration of the flu, with symptoms being relieved on an average of 4 days earlier. So that's kind of a big whammy right there as far as what can help knock out some bugs once we do have them. And it's been known for its ability, other abilities to help with allergies and fight inflammation. Like we talked about with the cold and flu, it's a great one. And I love, yes, Holton Homestead. Can we post something on that or like a link to that?
I just added a link to their Facebook page on our Facebook Live feed over here. So for anybody who's listening or happens to come across this thread, check them out.
Yeah, they're good. Oh my gosh, and the elderberry tastes good too. It's hard for me just to take a little bit at a time.
But you don't want to take too much.
No.
As with all things, moderation is key.
Yes, for sure.
Oh.
Echinacea would be another herb too, and there's a lot of echinacea teas that are out there. So that would be one that, if we want to search for some of those teas, taking that in would be good. I know that there are some chemical constituents that are powerful immune stimulants too, so really stimulating the immune system to get itself going. And that one is really good, or there's been research studies that have shown how that definitely helps with like respiratory type infections. So that wheezing and that, that phlegm that you feel like just kind of gets caught in your chest, echinacea has been really found to help with that.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
that's a good one too. I just want to read a few comments here. We have one from Stephanie. She's saying hello, sharing to some family members. So that's awesome,
Woohoo!
Stephanie. Thanks for spreading the word. This one is from Debbie. She says, thanks, a lot of great information. Some of that I needed to know. The video ended, so I'm not sure what happened there,
Oh,
but sorry
no.
about that. Just as you were talking about milk, I was going to say that I recently noticed how much sugar is in milk, and it kind of shocked me. And yes, there are additives to milk. If you think it's coming just straight from the cow through pasteurization to your jug, there's a little more to it than that.
Yeah, it is tricky. Well, and that's one of the biggest things that I talk about too, especially when we go to the skim milk or with anything that's like low fat or fat free.
Yes.
Fat's what makes stuff taste good, right?
It is, and your body does need a certain level of fats,
Oh.
and again, that's a whole nother talk, but
Definitely.
anytime that something is lower in one of the macronutrients, it's being replaced by something else. So they're just not taking it out and nothing's there, and a lot of the time, it's usually sugar.
Yes.
Is what they're
Like,
replacing
yeah, they take
low-fat
the fat out.
ingredients with. Yeah,
Gotta make it taste good somehow.
Exactly, yeah.
So, and I always say, I get it, like milk spent is a big thing here, in our state. And like you said, that's another show for us to talk about. But if you are going to do milk, get the full fat so that you're getting some of those other health benefits of it and less sugar. And I always say go organic with milk if we can, just so you're not getting the antibiotics and other hormones that are put in,
Yeah.
into the milk.
Yeah, because and this is just my opinion. It's not so much those who are not as big as fans of dairy. It's not so much the dairy or even meat sometimes of why meat can also be detrimental to your health, but it's all of the added hormones and those things that the animals are given. So for I guess their health, but also their production. that is passed along to us, those tend to be the bigger factors in impacting our health
Right.
than the actual food product itself. So,
Right. Well, and a little tip too, I have people come all the time where they're experiencing, like they feel like they always have to clear their throat and they've got, sinus problems going on and it's very, very phlegmy. One of the first things I tell people to do is let's just cut out all dairy for 4, 5, 7 days and just see what happens. And I think a lot of people do tend to be, or maybe have a small intolerance to dairy, maybe because of some stuff that we have going on with the gut where it's not healing and functioning the way that it's supposed to. So if we can remove some of that, we can find some of those other maybe intolerances, and we can start working on those clues to get it healing better.
yes. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of stuff. Sorry, I'm typing, responding, but here we go. So, in summation, if we were just to tie this up in one little neat bundle,
Yeah.
how do we, or what's the best thing for our listeners to take away in building their immune systems naturally this season?
Get sleep. Don't let yourself get stressed, and eat the foods God gave us, right?
It doesn't get much easier than that, folks. So thanks for listening in. I'll be back next Monday, and thanks so much to Melissa Grandin,
Thank you.
nutrition specialist with EP True Chiropractic, helping us learn today how to build our immune systems this season naturally. You guys have a blessed week, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Okay. I don't know if I overstepped my grounds, maybe.
Thanks for joining us for today's edition of Temple Building from the Inside Out, brought to you by the Hazel May Collaboration and Nutrition Coaching, helping you live your healthiest life yet. And remember, the thoughts and viewpoints of this program should not be taken as professional advice. Consult your physician for medical concerns.